For thousands of years, shamans, yogis, and mystics have practiced precise techniques to manipulate human energy. They mapped out intricate systems of the body, yet lacked the formal scientific language to explain how these manipulations actually functioned within the physical world. As a result, modern physical sciences have largely dismissed these maps of the subtle bodies. Without a rigorous mathematical formulation, a topological map that can be tested and measured, these esoteric practices are treated as subjective metaphors. But the AE framework suggests these phenomena are not metaphors. The structures described by ancient traditions map directly onto measurable dynamical systems, involving phase and coherence. This model provides the structural bridge between these two worlds. It translates the intuitive maps of esoteric traditions into the language of theoretical physics. By translating subjective spiritual experiences into a strict mathematical geometry, we arrive at a formal mechanism through which intention translates into physical reality. The foundational axiom of this theory is the existence of a continuous informational medium, the E field. Reality, at its core, is constructed upon a substrate of pure phase vibration. This 3D surface plot illustrates the E field, showing how it governs phase relationships across physical and non-physical scales. The peaks represent regions of high energy coupling and structural stability. This amplitude quantifies the information present in a given region. Observing a purely mathematical phase field using standard physical instruments presents an obvious challenge. Our tools are built to measure the movement of matter, not the underlying phase relationships that organize it. Within this framework, the solid world we interact with is the lowest level observable projection of these deeper phase dynamics. Matter is a localized expression of coherence within the A field. To understand both physical and spiritual reality, we must look past the projected shadows. The goal is to read the underlying topological field itself. Popular culture often depicts these subtle bodies as glowing, colorful auras hovering just above a person's skin. However, the A model describes a far more complex geometry. Here, the subtle bodies are formally defined as hierarchically nested quaternonic layers. They operate as multidimensional manifolds wrapping around one another in a specific structural sequence. This embedding moves inward from the mental domain to the astral, to the etheric, and finally to the physical core. Information propagates through these layers via strict topological projection operators. A change in the mental sphere must pass through the astral and etheric layers before it can manifest physically. When a distortion occurs in this downward projection, the system loses informational fidelity. In this framework, what we experience as an emotional block is the formal result of a structural misalignment between these nested manifolds. Human anatomy behaves as a continuous mathematical manifold. A shift in the outer mental sphere initiates a sequence of projections that eventually dictates a physical result in the core. This raises a central question. How does flowing phase information lock into a stable, perceivable reality without simply dissipating? The mechanism for this stability is the 3x2 reality matrix. It tracks and locks configurations of density and amplitude against phase and coherence across the physical, informational, and phase domains. Tracking this matrix is impossible using standing Hamiltonian physics, which is designed for two-variable systems. Instead, the model employs Nambu mechanics, a ternary system required to track phase, coherence, and entropy simultaneously. When the variables within this matrix achieve perfect alignment, they form a reality knot. Reality knots are topologically stable configurations. Their geometry prevents them from unbinding, which creates persistent physical objects or recurring experiential manifestations. These knots are categorized by their domain: NRM for material reality, NRE for emotional patterns, and NRK for karmic loops. A solid stone and a recurring life crisis share a structural identity. They are both stable reality knots maintained by the matrix. By isolating the NRK, or karmic knot, we can define the concept of karma using the language of theoretical topology. In this model, karma is residual holonomy within a closed path. As a configuration moves through a cycle and returns to its origin, its rotational angle has shifted out of alignment. Because the phase has not returned to its neutral identity, the mathematical equation remains open. The system is structurally predisposed to repeat the cycle until the phase is corrected. Energetic healing, or renudation, is the process of forcing this topological loop to close. By adjusting the phase, the rotation snaps into its starting angle, neutralizing the equation. Generational trauma and karmic cycles are essentially unresolved phase equations. They persist as stable knots until the underlying holonomy is corrected. To understand how these abstract geometries interact with us, we must look at the biological interface. There must be a physical mechanism that allows the human body to receive and translate these high-dimensional quaternonic phase shifts. This research highlights the electromagnetic properties of biological structures. It suggests that DNA functions as a fractal antenna, interacting with electromagnetic fields across multiple frequency ranges. Within the AEE framework, DNA acts as a structural phase waveguide. Its fractal geometry allows it to facilitate multiscale resonance, bridging the gap between the AEE field and molecular biology. This suggests that human biology is hardwired with microscopic interfaces designed to process the phase data transmitted through the AE field. This technical perspective also allows us to re-examine traditional descriptions of chakras. These are defined mathematically as coherent nodal domains, organized regions of phase distributed along the body's central axis. These domains act as quantized phase vortices. The AE field wraps around itself in discrete turns, creating the interface points required for interlayer information transduction. This leads to a mathematical definition of Kundalini. It is a critical threshold event described by the Kuramoto model. The Kuramoto model explains how independent oscillators can suddenly achieve global synchronization. In the body, this occurs when these individual nodal domains align into a single unified oscillation. This synchronization minimizes phase entropy across the entire system. It shifts the human architecture into a state where consciousness is no longer a local phenomenon, but a system-wide resonance. Zooming out, we can observe how the fully realized human system operates within this mathematical architecture. The AE model proposes that subjective spiritual experiences are the internal perception of objective topological shifts. Ancient techniques, rhythmic breathing, mantras, and meditation are intuitive tools designed to manipulate phase variables within the body. By integrating this ancient wisdom with the principles of holonomy and Nambu mechanics, we establish a rigorous analytical framework for the esoteric arts. The master shaman or yogi is effectively a highly trained practitioner of phase coherence. Their objective is the conscious management of the reality matrix to optimize the human spiritual and biological architecture. The universe is not divided between hard science and soft spirituality. It is a single, coherent mathematical structure, and consciousness is the act of learning how to tune the instrument.